Alright, just because the one I did earlier on was a complete failure, I'm just going to flick through and show you my heritage album, my heritage project. This is a huge project I'm undertaking. This album here will represent my side of the family. I also have a complete whole other album for my partner's side of the family, and I'm looking at it probably going into a third album down the track as well. So I've used the heritage core kit, and I really haven't, apart from this little bit up here, I really haven't actually embellished it much at all. So it's all sort of shades of cream, beige, brown, bit of blue chucked in there, and I actually have it in a green Kiwi We Are Memory Keepers album. So after my front cover page, and you are going to have to put up with the reflection a little bit as well, because this camera is not great, but we're doing what we can. So I'm researching my family tree on Ancestry. It was a project that I started doing. My partner has a huge family tree already given to him by his aunt, and his mum has done a fair bit of research. Now, while I was over in England in October, I spoke to my mum about it and said, I really want to put it into an album or something, and then I kind of got to the realisation that if I was going to do that, then my daughter really needed to have a balanced view of her parents, and if I was going to do it, then I'd do mine as well. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I'd taken photos of everything they actually had within the family. Luckily, like, both my nans are still alive, so I was able to glean a fair bit of information. So the rest of the research I have done on Ancestry. It costs a bit of money each month, but it does allow me to research in sort of my time. It's a little bit more complete than this now. These are the generations that are going in this particular album. For instance, from here you'll go to like my dad, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather. Now his family tree I've actually got going back into the 1600s. However, I'm not going to have any images. I'm going to have very little information. So I kind of, when I get to his point, I will just sort of do a continuation, and that'll probably go into the extra album. So I've set it up looking at me, generation 1, generation 2, generation 3, generation 4. Each person will have one page. So that's the tree, which kind of shows you how it's going to be set up, and there's me, that's my page. On each page I'm looking to have a title page and a card which says who the parents were, who the children were, and who the siblings were. And then images, as many as I've got, or other information. So you can see it's not a complete page as yet, and it very much is a work in progress. Over the page we've got my mum, and a bit further over here my dad. Now, as I say, this is really quite badly shot, but it does give you a bit of an idea about setup, which is kind of what this is about. In an 8.5 by 11 inch sleeve in the middle of each couple, I have got all the information that I've managed to find on Ancestry. So it's got things in there like the marriage registry, births registry, death registry if they're dead. Obviously my parents are not, so we don't have to worry about that just yet. And again, on each page, title card, who their parents were, who their siblings were, and between the two, who the children were. It's not so important with the earlier generations, but as you get further down the line it gets a bit more confusing. So then my nan, and you can see I've got a divider in here. That's just to show that we're moving into another generation. So my nan and granddad, my mum's parents, again with that 6x4, that 8.5 by 11 in the middle, with all the records that I've managed to glean and pull off of the internet. Now again, I haven't got much in the way of photos in there as yet. These pages will probably be full of photos. I've probably got enough photos to be able to fill them quite happily, and bits of ephemera and that sort of thing. So my nan's one here, my dad's mum I have actually filled with photos, and I've actually been able to date all of these photos, and these are all just, with the exception of that one there, these are all just snapshots of photos taken with my iPhone while I was in England. I just literally snap. So my granddad, who is dead, we have here again the title card, the information card, if you like. Don't need so much of a big information card. He wasn't one of lots of kids. There was only him and Aunt Rosemary. But I do have his birth certificate, or a photocopy of his birth certificate. So I've put that one in there because it was only quite a little one. And going further down, where I haven't got photos, then I will be able to fill them up a little bit further. Coming into a different generation, again, we've actually got, so here you can see, again, it's first generation, so I've got a divider. Sorry, third generation. I'm getting confused. We actually then get into like my nan's mum and my nan's dad over here. So we've got I've got quite a lot of photos of him actually, and again, all the information that I've been able to get off of Ancestry. And I will be able to go into a little bit of detail about how I research for the information on Ancestry, the types of things that I look to do to find out whether or not people are correct, that sort of thing. A copy of an entry of birth for my great-grandfather, my dad's granddad, and again photos of him, and I can actually remember visiting him in his nursing home. So over here we have my great-grandfather, yes, on my mum's side, and the picture down here is actually my great-great-grandfather, my great-grandfather with my oldest daughter. So that's that one's kind of an important picture to me. Actually, nipping back to my great-grandfather on my dad's side, if you don't have so much information, I kind of wanted to point this out. I discovered that he was born in Stepney Causeway, which is a big deal because that's where Bernardo's was founded. Now, I found out a little bit of information. He was actually born at number 4. Now, I have all that information from the birth certificate, which I took photos of while I was in England, and I found a map online from St Bernardo's of the time, and I've got little number 4 up here, so I know exactly where he was born in London, and I know exactly what that looked like at that time, which is one of the ways in which you can actually flesh out, if you haven't got an enormous amount of photos, maps. Even if it's modern day maps, you can look on Google Maps and find out where they lived, what it looks like now. Maybe, you know, right now it's not so interesting, but in 50 years time, who knows, things change an awful lot, and it just fleshes that out. It gives a little bit of colour to the history of their lives. So coming back down right the way through, my nan's dad and mum. I had a little bit of trouble with my nan's family, in a different way to my family, my surname family. My dad's family, all the Morrises, all appeared to be called John. So we have John Joseph, John Stephen. At least they had middle names, I guess, but it made life a little bit tricky to find out about them. So now you start to get down into the area where I've got a little bit of information that I've popped into sleeves, but I haven't really managed to secure. I haven't put the photos in. I haven't actually collated the information and got it into the album. So we'll just jump through this little lot. This one here, Emilia Clarke, she was my nan's grandmother, and there's a photo down here of my nan, that little girl there, my nan, with her grandmother. So that kind of goes back a fair way. And I have a fair bit of information about those because a little bit of work was done now by people other than my family, and it was provided to us. Which brings me to another point. If you do research using Ancestry, I've heard lots of fors and against. I leave my tree open. which means that pretty much anybody can look at my tree. They can only look at dead people, so really it doesn't matter too much from a privacy point of view. However, I have had people contact me with vital information and extra photos, etc. So it really is kind of a good way to further the information. So we're getting on down to where I don't have, I've started to fill in photos here, but haven't got much further with collating the information. There I've done a little bit of information collation. It happens to actually be wrong. There were 16 siblings within this family, and a lot of the information online is actually wrong, as I'm discovering. Do not trust everything you read firsthand. In the back of my album I have got a big wallet which helps to store all of the extra details and documents while I'm working on them. It's not all in here. I have also got a big box at home that it tends to all live in. So we've got a lot of information in here. This is all information that I was provided. This is all ancestry information, mostly census information. If your relatives lived in England at all, particularly between 1911 and 1830, you're laughing, because there was a census taken every 10 years and you can literally follow where they lived, make sure you're researching the right people, make sure that the siblings are correct, all that sort of thing. Copies of entries of birth, an earlier family tree. As I add to it, I kind of update it fairly regularly. Now when I went back to England, my nans, one of them wrote me out a family tree as best she knew it. Again, talking about maps, old maps are available online, so you can download, print out old maps so you can get a bit of an idea. All my family pretty much came from there in London, which is bizarre. I'm not from London, although to a person not used to English accents, I sound like I'm from London, apparently. I don't do a very good job of pretending that I'm not a POM anyway. So, certificates of birth. Little bit of a tip for the top: do not ever buy your birth certificates. If you want to buy a birth certificate, don't buy it through Ancestry. It will cost you about $40. If you do it through the GRO, it actually only costs you half of that. So it's worthwhile joining up with the GRO and just doing it directly through them. The GRO is the General Registry Office in England. So there we go. That's just a brief overview of my setup, and hopefully that will just give you a little bit more information. Thank you for watching.